I'm now giving you something that you need to hear more about. The conversation you and I are having today could never happen.
The deal that you lost, the one that got away.
Oh gosh. The sellers who are going to win are going to be the ones that retain that human touch.
The follow-up queen.
And I say to anyone that's kind of coming into a sales role or has been a seasoned salesperson, it doesn't happen every time. There is no salesperson that can say, I've won everything that I've, put myself forward for. No.
You hate it as much as some other sales leaders do?
We got the brief, but we lost the brief. I mean, even speaking about it now.
Where do you see AI helping?
I don't believe in that mentality. It's quite sad because it's actually one of the reasons why I enjoy being a salesperson, being a working mum. That resonates.
What does success in sales look like?
I want to live the Boujee lifestyle, right? And in order for me to do that, I need to make a lot of money. I never won a business on a first call. Even with my husband, I had to follow up.
So cool.
That's a good answer.
Welcome to the show, the podcast that is built for salespeople by salespeople. No buzzwords, no fake hustle, just straight talk about what it really takes to succeed in this job. I'm Alex Wood, and every week I'm going to be sitting down with some of the sharpest people in sales to find out what drives them, the wins, the losses, and just about everything in between. Today's guest is the follow-up queen. We are joined by Global Senior Sales Director at WeTransfer and one of the most creative minds in modern sales, Evelyn Oluwole. Good to see you, Evelyn.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
I love the job title, but tell us, when people ask you, what do you do? What do you tell them?
So I always say that my job is to take the pain out of marketers' problems. So if they've got a problem, I want to be the person that says, I've got the solution for you. And I want to help them along their journey so that they look good in front of their CEO and I look good in front of my manager.
Oh, we all like that, don't we?
Yeah.
When we all look good in front of the bosses.
100%.
Everybody's winning. So let me ask you, because there's probably a part two to that question in many ways. I think you say that to a salesperson, I'm a global senior sales director, they get it. Straight away, they resonate. What about non-sales people? How do you position it? How do you kind of speak their language and make sales appeal to a non-salesy person?
Yeah. So the first misconception when people hear of my job title is they immediately think, oh, are you going knocking down doors and begging people to buy this product that nobody wants to buy? And I always say that ultimately, as salesperson, and what I do in my role is build relationship with people, try to understand what they need, and then to offer them something that is going to solve their problem. And the reality is you need that any aspect of your life, whether in your personal life or your professional life. And so when I break it down like that, everyone's like, oh, I'm a bit of a salesperson. I'm like, yeah, everyone's a salesperson.
I think that's something that's not often understood as well, that whether you like it or not, everybody has to do a bit of sales, whether it's even if it's yourself or whether it's in a presentation, whether it's a pitch. And that's what, for me, stepping into the world of sales has been really quite eye-opening, is that even if you're not a salesperson, you are selling yourself every single day, no matter what job you're in.
Absolutely. One of the things that I do actually is I speak to a lot of young people at college, university, around sales. And they're always like, oh, but I don't want to be a salesperson. I'm like, you are going to have to sell through your journey in life. And so right down to what university you go down to, you're selling. You're selling through your personal statement to show that to demonstrate that you're good enough. And so in every aspect of your life, it's really, really important. So yeah, you're totally right.
Absolutely. And let me just ask you then about, you say you're into college, which is awesome. And you talk to some young people about, going into sales, and they're like, oh, I just want to ask you, what is that? Because that's something I think we're going to talk about in this conversation a lot today, is perhaps a stereotype, a resistance. Can you explain a little bit about what you're seeing there and why you think that exists?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that most people think that you have to have a particular skill to be a salesperson. One of the skills is you have to be confident. Another is that you have to be okay with being embarrassed, because they associate it with you going into places where you're not invited to talk about things that people do not want to know. And so no one wants that job. When I think back to how long I've been doing sales for, when I started in sales, my immediate thought of sales was the double glazer seller that would go to knock down doors, go on door to doors and say, do you want some double glazing? And everyone always says no. Nobody cares. Or like, the guy at the showroom that's selling a car that nobody wants to buy. And he's like, come on, I'll reduce it by £20. And so I do believe that there is that association with sales that makes it really, really boring, but also embarrassing and hard to do. But it's not like that, because there are different forms of sales and everyone needs to sell in order to win in anything they're doing.
I remember those knocks at the door. It was almost like you would hear it, wouldn't you? And you'd think, oh, who's going to go answer this door? And my parents, they would say, don't answer it, don't answer it. And before you know it, my brother or I have opened the door and we're already engaging. And we're like, oh yeah, this guy wants to sell us windows and he's got a great price. Parents never bought, sadly, the double glazing from the guy at the door. But I think you've hit the nail on the head there in many ways. But let me start by getting a bit of a better sense about your start in sales. Take us back to that beginning, and whether it was even a conscious thing that you moved into sales, or whether you just gravitated towards it. Where did it all start for you?
Sure. So when I was younger, I'd say 16, I wanted to be a TV presenter. And as a Black woman in the UK, there weren't many Black women on the TV screen. So like there was one particular lady who's still doing TV presenting work, June Sarpong. And she was the one that I saw on TV. And I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. So when I graduated, I went to apply for a role at ITV Studios, got the job as a runner, a glorified runner. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it, because I was in the TV production world. But I very quickly realized that actually it was going to take me a long while to get up the ladder and make my way through to it. And my parents, being Nigerian and typical Africans, were like, you've got a degree, you need to go and get a job. So they were like, go and get a job. My mum always says, go and get a job and wear a suit. If you're wearing a suit, you've got a good job, right? So I basically was opening, I was reading a newspaper, and I opened to the back of the newspaper, and there was an advert that said, media sales, do you have the gift of the gab? And I was just like, media, I did do a degree in media. Do I have the gift of the gab? I think I do. Let me just apply for this. I had no idea what media sales entailed. Really didn't know much about media aside from the obvious traditional advertising of media. And so I applied for the role, got the job, and it was working for EMAP, working for Draper's Records, which was their fashion business weekly, and selling the classified pages, which is the back of the book. That was my first intro into sales.
So you got tick for the degree, because you're putting that to work. Did you get to wear a suit? No. No suit worn.
No suit.
So what did the day-to-day look like in that environment then? What was that like?
Honestly, working at EMAP was the best job. In hindsight, it was the best job I ever had. And it was because I was working with other people who were similar to me, individuals who had different forms of degree, didn't even know what media sales was, but kind of stumbled across the role, but were like, oh, I'm going to get on with it. Like, I'm getting paid. This is a job, I'm going to do it. And so there was a group of us that were in that circle. And ultimately, we were selling to pattern cutters. So really, really micro, small businesses, they're parting with £20 for 2 lines on the back of your magazine. And you're having to sell. Like really, really sell, because they need you to demonstrate that the £20 that they're spending is going to get them 20 clients. So it wasn't an easy sell. It was a very hard sell, but it was a very rewarding one, because every client we won, there was like high fives. We didn't have the bells then, but like, like everyone was like really excited, and you had to get on the phone. So you had to lose.
This is phone.
Right.
Yeah.
This is like no emails. We're using the fax machine to send IOs. Contracts, as they were called then. And, you're getting on the phone and people are putting the phone down on you, and you're looking at your colleague, because there's no hot desk in, you're sitting on a desk, and the minute you pick up the phone, the person sitting next to you can hear the beginning of your conversation, hear how it slowly becomes not a conversation because they've put the phone down, and you have to be like, yeah, lost another one, get the phone back on, look through the yellow pages, find another. I mean, it was...
Wow. So, hardcore... feels old school in the way you
now when I
describe
talk
that.
about it, I'm just like, I cannot believe I got through that. And I also can't believe that I still find it one of the best roles that I've ever had.
Sure.
But I think it's because it was defining to me learning the grit of being a salesperson, because you have to be ready for the knockbacks. You have to be ready to put in the work and be persistent, because if you're not doing that, you're not going to win the client. And in that role at that time, you couldn't hide behind anything.
No.
You couldn't say, oh, I've just sent an email, I'm just waiting for them to come back. It's like, no, you get on the phone, right? You get on the phone, you speak to them, you understand why they're saying no, then you come back. So
for some people, they might hear that and think, in today's world, today's environment, like you say, maybe you can send out your emails, you can do outreach on platforms like LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
And maybe you can hide to an extent behind that.
Yes.
But it feels like in that space, maybe 10, 15 years ago, when was that?
15 years.
15 years. It is a dial rejection, rejection, and you just keep going. And I guess it's either you develop a thick skin or you don't.
Yeah.
It's sink or swim.
100%. And many of the people that I worked with at EMAP left because they just knew it wasn't for them, because it was tough. And they went into, other professions. But there were some of us that just stuck in there, because also the reward of sales, any salesperson knows that when you do well or when you hit your target, there is that monetary reward that can be, it's all subjective, but, for some people can be life-changing. So you want to put that work in because you know that it's going to translate into something substantial.
It's an incentive,
yeah,
right? And
exactly.
I think it's something that every salesperson probably relates to, and people outside of sales, right? If you work hard, there's remuneration, there's reward, and that's what you're striving for. And you said there, some people probably realized this isn't for them, and they've gone on probably to have very successful careers elsewhere. But you knew it was for you then on some level, and whether it was the reward at the end of it, or was there something else?
So definitely the reward. I mean, I'm like, I want to live the Boujee lifestyle, right? And in order for me to do that, I need to make a lot of money. So right from when I was when I was young, before I got married, I was just like, here's a really great opportunity for me to do good work, be brilliant, and be rewarded financially. So that was really attractive. The other thing is, maybe on my ego, but I love to win. And winning in sales is not easy. It doesn't happen every time. There is no salesperson that can say, I've won everything that I've, put myself forward for. No. And so I really loved that winning at the end of a long, dark, deep journey. But it was always that reward that just gave me this adrenaline of okay, I'm ready to go again.
It's that thrill, right?
Thrill,
is it a
yes,
chase?
Yes.
Is there an element
It's also
of that?
the chase. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because in my role, I've never been in a role where I don't need to knock on doors. No one comes in and says, hello, Evelyn, I want to talk to you about something.
If
and
only.
I want to get, no, it just never happens. I have to be like, hello, my name's Evelyn. Please speak to me.
And you probably, though, without realizing it, that schooling, that everything that you picked up from there, you say the grit of sales, you learned it there doing those dials. You must have heard pretty much every objection under the sun.
Oh gosh.
Can you recall any sort of interactions from there, or any that really stood out to you as being a difficult conversation?
Oh yeah, so most of the conversations, if I'm being completely honest, were difficult. So we would have a list of 30 contacts. And for me, within my role, I had to focus on pattern cutters. And these are pattern cutters who are promoting their services. And so I would go down that list. And of course, most of them will say, I'm a really, really small business. It's just myself. I can't afford to advertise, or I don't need to expand beyond the customers that I already have. That's the kind of trend that I was getting, which is, this is too big for me, even though it wasn't. It's, classified advertising. You're speaking to fashion professionals within that space. But so that was one of the knockbacks that I got. But the most popular one was around money, right? So the ones that were interested, they would say, I want to do this, Evelyn, but I've got £15.50. And it's it's £20. Even then, £20 wasn't that much. But
but for a small, micro businesses.
Yes.
And maybe, this is a lesson you can extrapolate from that. If you're dealing with small to medium businesses, it's all relative.
Yeah.
That number that you attach is relative,
so true,
because like you say, can they justify the spend if they've got, the revenue streams just aren't there? That challenge probably exists even if you're working in much larger organizations. The question 100%. Of budget is one that every salesperson will know when it comes to being, an objection or a reason not to buy.
Definitely. And actually, within that and with those clients, I never won a business on a first call. It was after the fourth or the fifth call, because by then I'd pretty much known everything about them, including the name of their cat, because I had to, because they were parting with what I was looking as nothing, but to them was for them a substantial amount of money. And in order for them to part with that, they needed to know that they could also trust me. And so part of that was me leaning into that, me getting them to understand why it was important for them to advertise with us, but also what that was going to do for them. So that was never going to happen on a one call. But every time I was able to build a relationship, those 5 to 6 calls, then I'd win them. And that, I mean, it was amazing, because then all of a sudden the growth of their business, whatever it looked like, they'd come back to you.
Yes.
So,
and then you're winning. Evelyn's winning. Evelyn's up. And that leads us very nicely into the question I wanted to ask. Our introduction today to you, the follow-up queen herself in our presence. What an honor. Tell us about what that is and why you feel so passionately about this.
I guess I coined myself the follow-up queen a few years ago, because I realized very quickly that I was naturally just following up about everything in my life, even down to, and this will take me back years, even with my husband who I've been married to for now coming up to 12 years. I had to follow up, I had to follow up. He had to follow up.
Yeah.
We followed up, and now we're married. And so I genuinely believe that if you get the follow-up strategy right, and I think there's not much conversation around strategy. People say follow up, follow up. I just need to do it, just checking in. And have you seen my email? No. You've got to be really strategic with how you go about doing that. And so because I was always talking about it, especially on LinkedIn, I was just like, I want to own this, because I genuinely believe that if you can master follow-up, it is the cheat code to success. And when I speak to mentees, the thing I tell them is, okay, what's your follow-up strategy? How are you going to get from A to B? Because that's not going to happen by luck. It's not going to happen by just one run. You've got to keep at it. And to your point, you mentioned earlier about persistence. You've got to learn to just be naturally persistent. So I am on a mission to decode the art of follow-up.
It doesn't just get you results in sales. Sounds like it gets you a life partner as well.
I guess your life partner.
Which I love, and I assume your husband was on board. You didn't have to sell him yourself in a way and convince him of the why of doing 100%. This, the pain you're solving here. But there's so much to unpack, and follow-up strategy. I mean, real emphasis on that. Can you break it down? I mean, you talk about some of the mentees that you speak to. Is this a mindset thing when it comes to perhaps young salespeople? It's not enough how are you strategizing to follow up? What does that look like?
So I think in our day and age, there's so many automated tools that should make it easier, and it does make it easier for salespeople. So when you're scheduling a call or you're scheduling another email because you haven't received a follow-up, you can lend yourself to using those tools. And I do believe that they can work. But I think the danger with that is there's no personalization within that. So there's none of that human touch that is really, really important. And this is where I guess the strategy comes in place. When you normally would do a follow-up, you would say, I'm just following up on the email that I sent or of the catch-up that we had, and I just wanted to know what you think about it. That's a pretty standard follow-up that 90% of the time is not going to work, right? Because you are speaking to people who are always time poor. We are all time poor. Everyone is quick to the mark, wants to know what's going on and move on quickly. So if that's how you're sending messages, it's not going to work. Now, in order for you to drive through the follow-up strategy, which I believe is very much about really understanding who are you speaking to and then trying to observe why they haven't responded. Because there could be a number of reasons why they haven't responded. One, it can be because they don't have the time. They haven't seen the email because they've got loads of emails. It's not the right time. So they've looked at your email, they think it's great, but it's not right now. Now, I'm making an assumption here. You won't know, right? But you need to think about that, because by thinking about that and trying to understand why they might not have responded is your way in to the next email to them and the next contact to them. So let me give you an example. I send an email to you, Alex, right? And I say, Alex, it was lovely to meet you. I would love to catch up on WeTransfer, what we're doing. You do not respond, right? Fine. You haven't responded after 3 to 5 days. I don't think that's a problem because I'm speaking to someone who's also busy, right? But on day 7, say like on a Monday or maybe a Tuesday, because I think Tuesdays are good for follow-up.
Ooh, okay.
On a Tuesday, rather than me saying, hi, Alex, just following up on the email that I sent to you, I would say, Alex, I saw this about X that you're doing, and I think it will be really, really great for you to see what it can do for you.
Added value.
Exactly. And then here's something else for you. So the valuable insight, and it'll be great to catch up. Light touch, really, really light touch, but giving you something that's completely different from the original email. And not enough of us do that. It's quite an easy thing to do, but we don't do that. We just immediately think, oh, I've got a long list of people who haven't responded to me. I'm just going to follow up by saying, have you seen what I sent you last week, and can you respond?
Yes.
They're never going to do it.
This builds on really nicely from a conversation I was seeing play out recently at an event where someone was talking about just checking in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this idea, this notion that we all do it as salespeople. That is, I guess, follow up without a strategy.
Correct.
Do you hate it as much as some other sales leaders do?
I've got to be honest, Alex. I hate it, but I also do it. The danger is when you are, and salespeople will get this, you're busy dealing with so many different clients, and you've got obviously other work to do as well. And you're thinking, I need to get back to this person, but I need to do it really quickly. It's very easy to default back to just checking in.
Just need to send this.
You just need to get it out. And obviously by getting it out, it's a tick box for you, right? So it means that I've engaged with them. But it is dangerous because it doesn't get you anything positive that's going to lead to a sale, which ultimately is what we are always on the outlook for. Using
the word just in that manner, in that setting, it's so subtle, but you are demeaning your role within that relationship. Because now you could be the best salesperson in the world. You might even have a very meaningful relationship with this person, this prospect. But the just implies, again, that you're there without invitation, that you're intruding. And the conversation was really about the psychology of subtle things you can do in conversation that don't demean or diminish the value you're bringing to this prospect, which is why that's your why, hopefully. And confession, by the way, to this is you even followed up with me about when we were going to have a conversation because I supposed to send our prep out to our guests, may have forgotten to do that according to the time that I'd said. And you were like, hey, just FYI, I'd love to maybe find out a bit more about this discussion, but talked a little bit about automation.
Yes.
I'm going to translate that into AI because I think that's a conversation worth having, particularly right now. In sales, where do you see AI helping and where do you perhaps see its limitations?
Firstly, I will say that I am a super AI user. And the reason why is because I do believe AI is here to stay. I do believe strongly that it can help in so much of the productivity of a salesperson. And I think that anyone that is shying away from it should not, because it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get more sophisticated. And whilst we won't lose our jobs, there'll be someone else that maybe has the competitive edge because they understand it better. And so in order to make sure that we're on top of our game, we need to be reading about it, learning about it. I say all that to say, though, that I don't believe that AI is going to replace anything that a salesperson does, because it will always come down to the human touch, which that is not going to die down. It's because AI does not have soul. And when I say AI does not have soul, what I'm referring to is that AI cannot read the room. Like you and I having a conversation now, and if it's getting a little bit awkward, there's just something, we'll just know.
Yes.
The eyes, the smile or lack of smile. Like AI can't read that. And if you're plotting in a prompt for AI to help you explain something, it's going to just scrape the internet, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not going to think about the depth and the context. So what AI lacks is context. And the only way it's ever going to get context is from the user, right? And so you are still going to have to put in the work of, this is the story. This is how I want you to interpret it. You're always going to have to need someone involved in that. And so that's why for me, I'm like, AI, how can you become my co-pilot? And how can you help me do my job better and effectively? Also, how can you do the work I don't want to do? The work that I'm maybe not that great at. Doing research, we all have to research, right? But AI can help do research so much better, so much efficiently.
So you see it very much perhaps in that research, discovery, perhaps understanding your prospect better. but you recognize when it comes to a call, a booked meeting, face-to-face, that's where that human touch comes into play. And I suppose then that's a blend, isn't it, of skill sets. So you want a sales rep today who has proficiency, a good knowledge of these tools, but ultimately is still confident and knowledgeable about being in front of their prospect.
And I think we have to recognize that in the world right now, there is so much that is automated. And so I believe that people are thirsty for human touch. They want to have conversations. If we think about everything that we do, you can pretty much navigate your day without having to speak to someone. And I think where it lends itself for you to speak to someone, that is actually where you can win, because there's not much of that happening.
And this leads nicely into outreach. I think there's a lot of discussion, there always is, about what's working, what's the hot trends, what we're leaving behind and what we're focusing on. Talk to us about channels that you think are absolutely working today, and maybe one that we should all have an eye on.
I think phone calls is maybe having a bit of a revival, because for many years, salespeople have reverted to communicating via email and then obviously a phone call when, you know, you get the buying signals. But I think more and more now, I certainly on my phone have been getting loads of calls, cold calls. So I think it's definitely having a comeback. But I think it is about using all of those channels, but using them in the right way. So in my opinion, one of the channels that is maybe underused is when you connect with a prospective client on LinkedIn, please do not send them a message saying, "Hi, lovely to connect with you. This is what we do. This is how we do it." You're literally going to lose that potential customer. What you should do, however, is get to know them via their communication on LinkedIn. So if you have connected with someone who is active on LinkedIn, get to know what they're talking about, get involved in that conversation. So comments. And I don't think people do that enough. Like they do it in an AI way, which is, oh, great, this sounds fun. They don't actually show that they have an opinion about what has been shared. But when you do that, you're doing two things when you show that you have an opinion. You're showing that you have the knowledge, you're showing that you care. And if you show to a prospective client that you care, you are going to win them over the 50 other vendors that are reaching out to them. And so I think using LinkedIn and using the commenting within that is a game changer.
That's a good pro tip. Now, I'm just playing devil's advocate here. Is it possible to be a salesperson in this day and age without being on a platform like LinkedIn? Is that even...
No.
No,
No.
You just can't.
It's actually impossible, in my opinion. I mean, listen, there are places where you work where, you know, the marketing works really well. And so, you know, through your website, these leads come in and you deal with them. But even if you go down to the marketing work, that would have started on LinkedIn. So you absolutely need to be active on LinkedIn. I genuinely believe that as a salesperson, you need to be active on LinkedIn. And I say to anyone that's kind of coming into a sales role or has been a seasoned salesperson, I'm like, if you're not on LinkedIn, you don't just need to get onto LinkedIn. You need to be active on LinkedIn. You need to be front of mind, because if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And there's going to be some other person who is literally active all the time that is going to win your prospective client over.
And do you need to be active on behalf of a company you work for? Or is it slightly more nuanced? I.e., can you be active for yourself?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the reason why a lot of salespeople maybe don't like using LinkedIn is because obviously they see it as a social media platform, which it is by title, but actually if you look at the way that it functions, it's not a social media platform. You are speaking to professionals who are working, you're engaging with them whilst they work. So it's a different social media channel. But I do think that when they think of it as a social media channel, that's the thing that makes them stop to think, I don't want to create content. I don't want to talk about the company that I work for. It's really, really cringe. But actually, I don't think you should. I think you should be talking about yourself, because in sales, people do buy people. And I know that everyone says people buy people, but it's true. People still do buy from people that they like. And how are they going to like or know you if they don't know anything about you? So you've got to talk about who you are beyond your job. Your job is part of you, but it's not all of you. So for example, with me on LinkedIn, yes, I'm coined follow-up queen. I talk about business development tips on, sales tips and all of those good stuff. But I also talk about the struggles of being a working mum. And that resonates with my prospective CMO client, who also happens to be a mom, who also understands where I'm coming from. And that's a really, really nice way of indirectly building relationship.
I love all of that. And I say it's a window into someone, and how honest, how real you want to be is ultimately a choice. But I think when you break it down and you hear it as you've described it, you're spot on. A lot of people come into this industry. We've already heard about your own journey, your first steps, and a lot of people leave because they learn it's not for them. It doesn't quite click. Talk to us a little bit about that pressure that exists. You know, you've got a number on your back, ultimately. How do you maintain momentum? How do you strive for that? How do you not take rejection to heart? Can you just talk us through what you've learned, either through observation or through experience?
A few years ago, someone amazing shared with me a way to kind of make myself feel better in my role as a salesperson. I'd said to her that, gosh, it's really, really lonely in sales because it's hard. Like every day, or not every day, but most days you're pretty much by yourself. Like you're reaching out to clients or you're wanting to hear follow up or feedback on whatever you've proposed. And often at times you get ghosted, right? And that happens day in, day out. So it's not like a part of your job. It's pretty much majority of your role. And one of the things she said to me is, Evelyn, make sure you keep a document of your wins. And she said those wins can be little or large. So don't think of wins as I've just closed this deal. Think of wins as I've engaged with the right decision maker. They are now considering my product. She said that's a win. Write that down. She was like, every time you kind of get that, write that down. And when you're feeling slightly low, go back to that document. And that is definitely I do it now. Like it's second nature to me. I'm always like, keeping notes of any small wins that I have, because when it does get deep and dark and lonely, I have to go back to those periods where actually this is worth it, because these are the examples of where I've been able to successfully move from 1 to 3. So that's something that I do.
Is that something you encourage your team at WeTransfer? Is that a habit you like to try and build in?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I do say to the more junior people is get ready for the no's and get comfortable with the no's. I think as a society, the world we live in, we see no as like negative. I mean, yeah, it is negative. When someone says no to you, it comes across negative. But I always say to them, the no's are okay. The no's will come. What you need to do is learn from the no's, because no is feedback. It's giving you something that you can then take away to ensure that the next time it's a yes.
I like that. And I guess that feeds into maybe in your mind what separates the good from the great, the average from the top performers, high performers. Are there any other sort of do's that you recommend for those that are in this sales, in this slog, in the hustle, things that you found really effective just to help you focus on what's important?
So I've almost finished a book that I'm reading called Challenge Yourself, which is quite a popular book. Most salespeople have read, should read it. I took time to read it. I was given it about 5 years ago. And then I met a friend that works in the same industry. She was like, you've got to read the Challenge Yourself. And I was like, I've got that book at home. It's by Matthew Dixon. And it's a brilliant book. And it talks about being a challenger seller. And a challenger seller isn't a nice to have type of salesperson. So actually it debunks this saying that people buy people, in that if what you're selling isn't what the customer wants, doesn't matter how much of a good relationship you have with them, they're not going to buy it. A challenger seller is someone that understands not what the client needs, but what the client doesn't know. If I go into a client, and I'll use you as an example, Alex, I'm meeting you. I know about your business from Google, from your website, from the statements that exist on your website. And I'm now telling you that, relaying that to you. I'm not giving you anything new. And I'm going to lose your trust in me because I'm telling you everything that you already know. What I need to share with you is what you do not know about your industry, about the competitors within your industry, and about your customer. When I'm able to give you that kind of knowledge, then I'm more than likely going to win you. Because if you can just say in our conversation, Evelyn, I didn't look at it that way, or I didn't think of it that way. I'm now giving you something that you need to hear more about, and I'm going to win you.
You're changing the perspective.
Correct.
You're shifting that focus. And then I think you actually see you forget that this is a sales-led conversation, right? And this is interesting because I think it builds on your strategy of adding value.
Yeah.
You know, you're not doing the just check-in, you're not just following up, you're actually adding something of potential use to this prospect.
Absolutely.
And it's not through the lens of, here's my product, here's my solution, I think you should check it out. You're actually taking that time. And perhaps that's the thing that most salespeople will struggle with, is finding the time to do that.
Yes.
How do you do that?
So what I do not do is, I don't believe in the spray and pray. The spray and pray mentality, which is, I've got a 10,000 potential customers, and I'm just going to send out loads of emails out to them and hope that one sticks and somebody comes back to me. I don't believe in that mentality, because if you work that way, there is absolutely no way that you're going to be able to structure your selling method and the follow-up strategy. You're never going to be able to do that with 10,000 sales customers. So what I do is I focus on about 20 to 30 clients at any one time. They have to be the kind of clients that are right for the product that I'm working on. So at WeTransfer, the kind of brands that work are tech brands, fashion brands, luxury brands, B2B brands that are really targeting, those B2B businesses. Anyone that's outside of that, I'm not saying no to them, but they're not my priority. My priority is the brands that I know that are going to work. And so I kind of do a deep dive into them to understand what they need, and then I reach out to them. And that is digestible work. Anyone can do that. You don't need to be a senior salesperson to do that. You can do that at entry level, but you want to really, really fine tune who you're reaching out to, and then you get better results every time.
And give us a little bit of an insight into the world at WeTransfer then, just very quickly, in terms of that being a large-scale organization that most of us will have heard of,
yes,
or certainly use to send a massive file to someone at some point in their lives. What's the challenges you run into then? Because I'm just thinking about where you started. Those classified ads, the part with your 20 quid and, we'll put your ad in the back of the pages, up to where you are today.
So WeTransfer, as you know, like a file sharing platform. Most people have used it. And so whenever I go out to market about WeTransfer, it's very easy for us to have a conversation about it because they've used it. But the struggle that we find, the sellers for WeTransfer, is when we talk about WeTransfer advertising, the brand awareness is actually quite low. And it's low for actually a positive reason, which is that when people go on WeTransfer and they see the adverts, because it has such a seamless feel, it feels really, feels and looks beautiful, feels and looks like it's part of WeTransfer, they don't immediately associate it with advertising. And so I would meet with a contact and I'll be like, WeTransfer, WeTransfer. She's like, I love WeTransfer and I love the wonderful wallpapers. And I'll be like, oh, brilliant. So I am, a seller. So I sell the wallpapers. She's like, oh, are they adverts? I'm like, yeah, they're adverts. This
is me, by the way. I'm learning for the first time that those lovely, subtly animated images that are just there on the right-hand side as I'm attaching my files are what you sell.
Exactly. So that is often at times the not danger, but it's what can be what can make our role slightly challenging. And so we have to do that work of building that brand awareness. But of course, once we do that, once they understand how it works, then it does become quite an easy sell for the right client.
Yes.
And I think that's something that I'm, even in my 20 odd years of doing sales, I've had to realize that WeTransfer is brilliant, but not for every client. And that has to be okay.
What is the right product for the right customer? There has to be that harmony. When you look back to date on your career, what's the biggest thing that's changed in sales? And what's one thing that is absolutely the same and in your mind is going to carry you right through? It's never going to change.
I feel like when I started in sales, it was about face-to-face. There was no choice. You weren't doing any other thing. You were on the phone, you were sending emails, but you were also meeting clients. You were getting to know them. You were going into their offices. You were doing creative sessions. Now, I'm not saying that that's not happening, but I am saying that it's not happening as much. Sure. And I think that it's quite sad because it's actually one of the reasons why I enjoy being a salesperson. I love getting to know people. I love getting to know people who have different lived experiences from me. I love getting to know people to understand their challenges. And that doesn't happen on Zoom. It just doesn't. The conversation you and I are having today could never happen on Zoom, because after about 20 minutes, we'll be like, right, okay, bye. But when you are speaking to someone face to face, there is definitely that rapport that you build. And I feel like it's going to continue to change with automation, with AI. It's going to change in a way that's going to make people more robotic. And I think, in my opinion, the sellers who are going to win are going to be the ones that retain that human touch. I think that's the biggest change, but maybe that change is going to flip and revert back. We'll
see. I mean, and I think that's a curious thing to maybe explore in terms of, do you think businesses recognize that it is useful for a rep to go out? Is actually time well spent? It is worth that investment?
Absolutely. Even in my role, I would take a face-to-face meeting over a virtual meeting any day, because you cannot, honestly, the power and the access that you get in having a face-to-face conversation with someone cannot be quantified or compared to what you get on virtual. And so I always say to sellers, I say to my colleagues, I'm like, you got to get out. Like, you've got to get out. You got to go to events. You've got to meet people. You've got to get people to meet you, speak to you, get to know you, because when they do, they're so much more likely to buy into you.
So much of this is, that's visibility on the surface.
Yeah.
It's networking connections. But I think under that, it's trust. And I think that all comes back to your building relationships. People buy from people, whether it's virtually and it's on a platform like LinkedIn, or it's in person. I think it all feeds into that, who you are.
Yeah.
Can I trust this person? Do I like this person? And I think that all feeds into, as I say, that sort of ecosystem. I want to maybe hit you with some quick fire questions, just to mix it up a little bit. Can you tell us about the biggest deal that you've closed?
Okay, so the biggest deal that I've closed was when I was working at Yahoo. I was looking after Tumblr, which was a newly acquired social media channel for Yahoo. And my role was to engage with fashion and beauty clients. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. That's great. Like, I'd already worked at ASOS for about 7 years.
Okay.
So I kind of knew the right contacts. However, after starting that role, within 3 months, Snapchat started, and everyone wanted to speak to Snapchat. Nobody wanted to speak to Tumblr. And so that was a very, very difficult and challenging role for me. But it was amazing, because I was able to win Clarins, who, Clarins by nature, a French brand, are very traditional and weren't even thinking about Tumblr as a potential platform for them. But I was able to build a remarkable relationship with the digital media manager at the time. And off the back of that, really understanding what she wanted to achieve from the campaign that she was running at that time, I was able to present what Tumblr could offer to her. And we were able to secure a 6-figure deal for that particular brand.
Awesome.
So that for me was like the biggest one, just because it was a client that was ordinarily on paper would never have used Tumblr, but I was able to kind of like change that mindset to get them to think of it. So
and the right time as well.
The right time.
Because you say, Snapchat was just coming onto the scene. Everyone was pivoting there. Who knows if that had been 6 months later, whether that investment, that deal might have gone in another direction. So we've had biggest deal.
Yes.
Tell us about then the deal that you lost, the one that got away.
Yes. Okay. So this was, I was working at an agency, and my role as new business development was to engage with clients who did not know about that particular agency. And one of the things that I asked my manager at the time, who was the managing director, I said, what's the one client that you want to get your hand on? And she mentioned Spotify. And I was like, right. Okay, that's a difficult client. And she said, actually, don't even bother with them, because Spotify already do this particular nature of work in-house. So they wouldn't actually work with us. Well, for me, Alex, I was like, that's a project for me. I'm gonna do everything I can to engage with them and to get a meeting with them and get a brief out of them.
So you had them in your sights.
I
this
really
is Spotify.
did. I was just like, I've got work to do, but I want to impress my managing director, and I want to get the client that she really wants, but she knows that she can't get. And so I reached out to them, several emails, engaged with them at events. I then got a response back from the decision maker, the main person. And she was like, oh, wow, yeah, I've heard of this agency. And yeah, it'll be great. Let's have a conversation. We had a conversation. We had a meeting, talked through everything that we offer as an agency. And they were like, brilliant. And then weeks later, they sent us a brief. And I was just like,
here we go.
How did we get this? I was so happy because obviously all the work that we had done proved that actually even with clients that you think are untouchable, you've got to just try. And so we got the brief, but we lost the brief. And even speaking about it now, I was so gutted because winning them would have been so much bigger than what that investment was. It was more of like, to win them would have been like, I don't know what it would be like, but it was such a big loss for me as a salesperson that really wanted to engage and onboard that client. The fact that we were briefed and we were not successful in winning that RFP was super painful. But obviously there was a huge lesson learned. And actually following on from that loss, I then sent him a package and we were coming up towards the end of the year, and it was a care package of all the things that you need, like you've been working really, really hard. So like hand towel in there. There were some lovely candles, like things to kind of, things to just kind of like make you like calm down. And then I put a note and I just said, thank you so much for briefing us, giving us the opportunity to brief for this particular campaign, and we wish you all the best.
Nice. Classy. That's classy. Nice. Didn't win the deal, but you made a positive impression, like you say. And even 100%. If it was the one that got away, it was mission impossible to start with. Maybe that's why it felt you were close. You were so close. But tell us then, we talked about outreach and outbound, but I want to double down on this. Email, call, or LinkedIn DM. You get one now for the rest of your sales career. Which one are you sticking with?
It'll be emails. It'll be emails. I think the reason why emails don't work is because people get it wrong. I think you have to understand, or you have to learn how to send the right emails. If you are a writer, that's great, but you need to know how to do short form writing. And if you do that, you can be really successful with your emails.
Absolutely. Most overrated sales cliche? That
it's all about closing. It's not about closing. It's about connecting.
Oh, okay. So it's earlier.
Yeah, but also I just think that as a sales person, we're always wanting to close the deal. Sometimes you don't close the deal because it's not right. It's not right for you. It's not right for them. But actually it's about connecting, because people move along, and a person that isn't a client today could be a client tomorrow.
And like you say, you learn from the no's, you learn from what we might consider a fail. If you look at it through that lens, it's not. It's a learning experience. And if that's going to inform that next deal, or even if it's a deal later down the line, it was a success. So I think that reframing that, I think is fantastic. What's next for you then?
When I started in sales, there weren't many Black women that were doing the kind of role that I was doing. Like I was one of, 3 at the time. And so obviously the years, the world has changed, years has changed. And I feel like there's so many more people that want to come into the industry but don't really know how to. And so what I want to continue to do is to mentor people, to be able to mentor people within my community, to educate them on this part of the industry. There's the exciting part of media sales, there's the exciting part of advertising and media, and I'm like, actually, this part of the business is very lucrative because you will learn skills that you can use for the rest of your life. So I want to keep on talking about what I do, the business development side of it, and to kind of empower people to, come into the industry and thrive.
And I think that maybe taps into elements of the stereotypes, the image that we talked about earlier in terms of what people think of as sales. Does that still exist in your mind today? I mean, you're breaking down barriers, and you've talked about how you want to encourage that from other people within your community. But are you seeing that stereotype still exist today?
So I think it's changing, and I think that the more that, there's more people within sales being vocal about the work that they do, going into the detail of the work they do. And the more that we're seeing that, the more people are like, so it's not just about going into rooms where people don't want you
Yeah.
and talking to people who don't want to speak to you. It's actually a little bit more sophisticated than that. So I think more of that narrative is changing. And I think it's good because I love sales. I'm very, very proud to say I'm a seller. And then, of course, when I'm working for, I've only worked for great brands. And when I'm working for a great brand, I'm so proud to say, look, I'm part of the team that helps to sell this product so that this product is used in the way that it needs to be used for the people that want to use it.
And if you're in an entry level or more junior role, if you're a rep perhaps, and you've got that trajectory in your mind that this is where you want to be, what's going to help that individual get there faster, quicker, or be just more confident that that is the direction for them? What do you look for perhaps in that rep to AE journey?
I would say you need to be hungry. Be really, really hungry to learn. Find a buddy, so someone in your team who is maybe 2 steps higher, maybe even 1 step higher, and shadow them. Listen out for how they communicate and how they communicate with clients. Learn how to deal with clients, because whilst being a seller is great to get in the new business, learn how to retain the business. Because when you're able to retain business, that's when you become you future-proof your career. Because ultimately, that's what you want. You want to gain clients and you want them to stay in the business. So be hungry, be persistent, find a buddy, someone who you can hang out with, and build on your client servicing.
You've been in this game for 20 years?
20 odd years, even though I don't look a day over 20.
20 years in this game.
Yeah.
There's a lot of experience in there. In your mind, what does success in sales look like?
So being brilliant. I think there is this notion around just going with the flow, and I don't believe in it. I think you need to be absolutely brilliant at your job. And if you're not, do training, get better at your communication, at the skills that are necessary for you to do the best role. I think the other aspect is that care about your clients. If you care about your client because they are human beings just like you, you will almost always win them. And that's the thing that I have worked at. When I think about where I've been successful on a particular partnership, it's because of the relationship that I've built from even before I even thought they would be a potential client. If you care about people, if you are passionate about wanting to add value to what it is that they're doing, you almost always win them.
Yeah. And don't forget to follow up.
Don't forget to follow up. How can I forget that?
Have your strategy in place.
Yeah, exactly.
Dot those T's, dot those I's, cross those T's. Evelyn, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been fantastic to have you on and have this conversation. Remind us, where can people find you?
Mostly on LinkedIn.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, mostly on LinkedIn. So Evelyn Oluwole on LinkedIn. And also on Instagram, The Follow-Up Queen.
You managed to get that username then. You managed to lock it in.
Just about. And now, I don't know when this is going to go out, but I'll try and get some content on there so that it looks busy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, as I say, for joining us here today. That is it for our first ever episode here of the Surfe podcast. If you are in sales, which I'm assuming you are, if you've made it all the way through to this point, you will know this job can be tough. It can be brutal, but it can also be brilliant. So if you took something from today's conversation, share it with your team. Tell us what stood out to you, whether it's over Slack or in the comments here today. Follow the show wherever you get your podcasts and connect with us, of course, on Surfe channel across YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for more stories, advice, and real talk from our guests. I'm Alex Wood. Thank you for listening. And remember this, good sales isn't about closing faster. It's about showing up smarter. We'll see you on the next one.